Well, today we're going to be diving deep into the mysteries of our world and beyond. Today we're talking about one of the most fascinating and controversial discoveries to come out of the world of space and science. Yes, we're talking about the Three-Eye Atlas. And joining us today is astrophysicist and researcher Bryce Bolin, a leading voice in the study of interstellar objects and the phenomenon that challenges our understanding of the universe. Bryce has been at the forefront of the conversation surrounding Three-Eye Atlas, what some believe could be a technological signature or even evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. Is it a natural cosmic object, a probe sent from a distant civilization, or something entirely different? Today, Bryce helps us cut through the speculation and scientific noise to uncover the truth behind Three-Eye Atlas and what it could mean for humanity. So buckle up, truth seekers. It's going to be a mind-expanding ride. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, astrophysicist and researcher Bryce Bolin. There he is. I love it. Happy Halloween.
Hey, thank you for the intro. It was very nice.
Of course. And do you go by doctor?
Well, you don't have to call me doctor. Just call me Bryce. I prefer that.
If you call you doctor, you have to send a check, right?
No, it's. I mean, we're discussing science topics here, and that's kind of we use the doctor title. But I like to keep things kind of low key. I'm wearing this shirt right here. It's a Halloween shirt. Right?
Well, I love it, and for people out there that are listening today. We're in a new month of November, and every place I look on Instagram and TikTok, and even in my world of paranormal, and people are talking about Three-Eye Atlas. And first of all, can we just dive right in and just tell what Three-Eye Atlas is? I mean, we've seen the pictures, we've heard about it, but we don't really know what it is.
Yeah, sure. So Three-Eye Atlas is the third. That's the reason why it has the name Three and Eye. It's the third object that is an interstellar, let's say, object of interstellar origin. That's what the I stands for in Three-Eye. This is an object what we define as interstellar as something which we know at a very, very high level of confidence originated from outside our solar system.
That's pretty amazing.
So we've seen asteroids and comets inside that originated from inside our solar system go interstellar. But those we know for sure because they encountered Jupiter or had some other kind of event that caused their orbits to be perturbed to a level where they would go interstellar. We know that they originated from inside our solar system. But the interstellar objects, we're talking about One-Eye, Oumuamua, Two-Eye, Borisov, and now this most recent one, Three-Eye Atlas. These are objects that we know definitively had to have originated outside the solar system. Thus, we call them the interstellar objects.
I honestly, I knew this was the third, but I didn't connect the two. So I'm glad, or the three. So thank you for telling this at. And what of this particular one, Three-Eye Atlas, what makes this different from its interstellar predecessors? Is there anything different at all?
That's a good question. That's an excellent question, because it appears that these objects are all quite different from each other.
Wow.
And it depends on how you look at things and how you define differences. But the first interstellar object, One-Eye Oumuamua, was very, very weird. When we first saw it, we were like shocked. And it had an appearance of like an asteroid. We thought it could be an asteroid, which was very shocking. It was actually very startling. Because we think that the processes that produce these interstellar objects is more favorable towards producing comet interstellar objects rather than asteroidal interstellar objects. So when One-Eye Oumuamua was first discovered, It had no evidence, no apparently obvious visual evidence that it was a comet. It appeared to be like a point source. So when you're looking at a comet in the night sky, like the one that's in my background right here, it is extended. It is resolved. You're actually seeing the full size of the object in space. It's projecting an area across the sky that is due to its size. However, when you're looking at these stars, like this one right here, like these other little point sources, you're not seeing true size of that star. It's very, very far away. So its angular size, its apparent size, is so small that the laws of physics don't let you see its true size. We call those unresolved objects. And it has to do with the fact that if you're observing from the ground, we're looking through the atmosphere, and that is smearing the light out where it spreads the light out at a scale that is much bigger than the star appears, than the actual physical size of the star as it would appear from your perspective on Earth. And if you're in space, you still have issues because the laws of physics, the laws of diffraction, set a limit to how small things you can see. And it's a lot smaller than what you can see from the ground, but it's still not, let's say, good enough resolution for you to actually see a star in its full size, at its actual physical size in space. So when I talk about Oumuamua being not like a comet, that's what it means. It looks like a star. It looked like a star, a point source, an unresolved point source. Whereas the other two interstellar objects, 2I Borisov, 3I Atlas, they had a cometary appearance. They had a coma. You could see it was fuzzy, and it had a tail. Like a lot of comets, we talk about having tails.
Right.
And so those, it was much easier to see that those were comets. But Oumuamua was a point source, and that was very startling to us. That was very shocking to us.
Now, Oumuamua and Borisov, and even Atlas, how do we determine this is from a different star? I mean, the space is is so large. How do you even determine that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And that was the defining problem for interstellar objects when we first saw Oumuamua, the very first interstellar object, Oumuamua. We were very astounded by it because its properties, its trajectory in space, seemed very, very distinctive in that it could not have come from inside the solar system. So I'll talk a little bit about another comet, another object called 1980 Bowl. And 1980 Bowl, we saw when we detected it, it was a hyperbolic object, meaning that it was on a trajectory that was going to leave the solar system and never come back again.
Wow.
But that particular object, 1980 Bowl, when we studied its trajectory, we saw that it passed by Jupiter. And when objects pass by Jupiter, they go by Jupiter, they can get slingshot out in the interstellar space. Right. So we had an explanation. So okay, so when I say interstellar, when I say hyperbolic, what that means is that they have a trajectory in space that cannot be described as a circle or an ellipse. So many centuries ago, there was a scientist by the name of Johann Kepler. He was a German guy.
Yeah.
And he came up with these laws of planetary motion. And one of the laws says that objects that are orbiting the sun have a trajectory that is described as though it's a circle or an ellipse.
Oh, wow.
That is closed. So an ellipse is basically like an egg-like circle.
Right.
See if I can get that on the
there you go.
Camera. A circle is going to be like that, but an ellipse is going to be like more elongated, more egg-shaped like. And these interstellar objects, or let's say hyperbolic objects, when I say hyperbolic, its trajectory as it passes by the sun is not a closed loop. It's an open loop. And for these interstellar objects, they have these hyperbolic trajectories where when we study them, when we see them, when we trace their trajectory through space, we know that they did not encounter Jupiter or any known gas giant planet or ice giant planet in our star system. There is Planet 9, this possible mystery planet that is hundreds of astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the distance between the Earth and the Sun. So we're talking about this mystery planet that could be out 300 times that distance. It could be out in the outskirts of the solar system. We haven't detected it yet. We're not sure if it's there. But even Planet 9 is in a location to where these interstellar objects couldn't have encountered it.
Wow.
So there is no massive body in our solar system that could have slingshotted these objects. So for Oumuamua, it was basically coming almost straight down, like you're imagining our sun and the planets are making like a target.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the bullseye that is the sun. It almost came straight down like it was trying to hit the bullseye there. And if it were a comet that encountered some of our planets, it would have come more in line in plane, in the same orbital plane as all the other planets. But because it was coming straight down, we knew there was no way that it could have encountered one of our planets. And
that's pretty amazing.
It had to have come from another star. There's just no other way about it. And it was moving about 30 kilometers a second at infinity. So its speed at an infinite distance from our sun was extremely fast. And for objects that originate from inside our star system, their speed at V infinity is 0.
That's pretty awesome. And is this more like the physical traits that really stands out to you, or when it comes to terms of shape and spin and velocity? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Because that's pretty fascinating to see something that's completely out of the ordinary, when majority of the people that are looking into our space, I guess it is also pretty exciting to see something that's different.
Oh yeah, it was very Oumuamua was very startling. I remember I couldn't believe it when I saw it. When I saw the data, the information, I thought it had to be a joke. And you know what? The funny thing is, it occurred around Halloween.
Oh really?
2017. Oh yeah. I remember
perfect
that.
Timing.
yeah, it was very spooky, and it was mid-October, and then when we're convinced that this thing was real, that it was really interstellar, it was about Halloween, so it made things very spooky, and so at some point we just had to accept the truth, and okay, this is the real deal, and we got to studying it. Because we've had some false alarms. Not really so much before Oumuamua, but in the time after Oumuamua, some people claim to have found an interstellar object, and you can have false alarms that are triggered by wrong information about the object. And it can exaggerate things. It can make it seem interstellar, but it's not really interstellar. So when we first saw Oumuamua, and then after that, we started to become more skeptical about it. But so the evidence had to be very, very strong to convince us.
Of the three, which one is probably moving the fastest? And
3i Atlas.
So Atlas is moving the fastest. And is it? Because I mean, again, you hear all kinds of conspiracy theories, and you hear theories about, and we're going to get into the potential extraterrestrial ship, but the movement about how it's slightly moving off its course. Can you set that record straight? Where is it in a straight line, or I guess unless it hits an object, but is it heading in the same direction as it was when it entered our solar system?
Yes, so the V of infinity of 3i Atlas, so that has a speed at an infinite distance from the sun, is about 60 kilometers a second.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah, it's very fast.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's a reason for that. And it has to do with its galactic orbit.
What is that for the people that don't know what galactic orbit is?
Well, so you know how we talked about Johann Kepler?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So his laws of planetary motion, they assume some things about gravity. Well, actually, he didn't really have a theory of gravity, to be honest. It wasn't until Newton came along who really put the pieces together. Galileo helped as well. But he just looked at these things from an observational standpoint. He didn't know the reason why the planets went around the sun. But he could see that they went around the sun.
Right.
And he could describe how they went around the sun. He didn't have that theoretical explanation. Newton did that. Kepler was right. His laws are correct. And what they rely on is an understanding of gravity that assumes gravity is constant with time. However, that works for asteroids and comets that are orbiting the sun. Mm-hmm. However, when you're getting out very, very far away from our sun, so we're talking about thousands of AU, we're talking about maybe a quarter of the distance between us and Alpha Centauri. Wow. The gravity from the galaxy becomes very relevant. And that doesn't operate like gravity in our star system, our solar system. And it doesn't mean that the laws of physics are changing. It's just how the laws of physics operate at galactic scales is different. And this is due to the fact that our galaxy is beautiful, by the way. It has spiral arms, it has gas clouds, it has streams of dark matter, and it's massive. And when all these things combine, because we're floating around the galaxy, we're not static. So the Earth is orbiting the sun, but the sun is orbiting the galaxy. And guess what also orbits the galaxy? These interstellar objects.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Good point.
And
good point.
And the gravity is not constant with time, because as we're orbiting the galaxy, as our sun is orbiting the galaxy, and as these interstellar objects are orbiting the galaxy, they are encountering dark matter, galactic gas clouds, spiral arms. And because these structures inside the galaxy are so massive, they exert a gravitational tug that is different, that changes with position and time, as well as our sun or these interstellar objects orbit the center of the galaxy. The galaxy is a lot more complicated than our solar system. There's a lot going on there.
It's almost like looking inside of a body. It's like just the cells inside of a body. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's like we're just.
I'm glad you said that, because I had a similar thought. I thought the same thing as well when I was looking at some galaxies. That they look like cells.
Yeah.
They have like a nucleus. Mm-hmm. And they have in cells, the nucleus has like DNA in it.
Right.
And then they have like the cell itself that surrounds the nucleus. But there's also these organelles, like mitochondria, and you got all these wild little organelles floating around them. But galaxies, they look like, to me, they kind of look like that. I got some in my background field here.
No, they do. I just think they look like little cells that. Which is pretty amazing. We're like a cell inside of a cell inside of a cell. Yeah, it's pretty great. And the technology, I'm sure, today has helped a lot of these discoveries, because I couldn't imagine 50 years ago to be able to even to see this far out. But what are some of the technologies that you know of that are currently in development? Because we all want to kind of see what these are a little closer. We're not going to be able to get right next to them, but how could we ever have the technology, and what technology could we have to maybe get some samples from material, not necessarily from these three, but other travelers out there?
Yeah, that's what people were asking. I was talking to a scientist the other day at the University of Hawaii, and he was saying, "Yeah, we got to get samples from these interstellar objects. That's going to have to be how we really can
Hmm.
understand these things." But that's really hard. These things, when you have something that's a v infinity of 60 kilometers a second, when it gets
Yeah.
closer, as it gets closer to the sun, it accelerates due to the sun's gravity. It's getting faster.
Right.
So you have to have what is we call it change in velocity. You're going from the change in velocity of the Earth. Our velocity, as the Earth goes around the sun, is like something like 30,000 miles an hour. So we're talking about tens of kilometers a second.
Yeah.
To catch up to something that's going like 80 or 100 kilometers a second, that is a huge amount of change in velocity. And you have to have rocket, like some kind of propulsion that can accelerate from our base velocity here on Earth to catch one of these things. And not only that, rendezvous with it. Because if you want to collect a sample, you can't just fly past the object. You can't
Right.
just shoot by it. You have to accelerate and slow down to where you are orbiting that interstellar object. You can get caught by its gravity. And these things are small.
Right.
They're hundreds of meters in size. So the gravity is very weak. We're talking about the gravitational acceleration is like centimeters per second squared. On planet Earth, we're very lucky that we have 11 meters per second squared. These objects, they're much smaller, much less massive. So we're talking about centimeters, millimeters per second squared.
Where's
And
Bruce Willis when we need him?
yeah, well, I mean, he was, well, I mean, it wasn't lucky because that was a scary asteroid in that movie, right? I
Right,
mean, I
right.
think the size of Texas, I think, right?
Right.
But I mean, you can have some real gravity. I mean, the moon is talking about width-wise. It's about the size of the United States, width-wise. So something the size of Texas is going to be certainly weaker gravity than the moon, but it's not going to be non-existent. But these little things, they're not going to have much gravity. So it's connecting with them and then excavating and then capturing material and storing and bringing it back to Earth is going to be very, very challenging. But it's not impossible. You know, mankind, humankind, you know, we're problem solvers. You know, we figure things out. We figure out how to do things when we set our minds to it.
Right.
You know, we have to set our minds to it, and we have to think about saving the human race. You know, we can do it.
Yeah. The way we're going, I'm not for sure we will, but
yeah, that's tough.
yeah. So I know we couldn't even end this if we didn't ask a question, because you know I've been in the paranormal world and UFO and extraterrestrials, and you know, many, not just a few, many have speculated this is an interstellar object that could be artificial, which with scientific standards or without
the term non-natural.
Non-natural, yes. There we
let's
go.
say hypothetically,
Yeah.
when you say artificial, that implies human made, right?
Right, right.
But if these things are of non-natural origin, they're not going to have anything to do with humans, right?
True. I guess that could be extraterrestrial since it's not from our our stars, or so I guess that could be. But how do you, as a scientist, how do you separate the two, and how do you explain that to people? Because eventually we may one day get that object that comes from another galaxy or another star that is alien based. But how do you separate the two?
I mean, that's the prize. That's like the hope, right? I mean, that you know, let's say hypothetically, Oumuamua was a non-natural object. Right? That would make the discovery of Oumuamua the most significant event in probably, you know, I'm not going to say human history, right? You know,
Right.
but one of the most significant events in human history in the last several hundred years.
Right.
I mean, that would be huge, right? That's like the prize, right? That's like the idea. But I think, and this is a very interesting topic because I ask myself the same question in other areas of my science. I don't want to bore you guys, but we have there's a set of interesting objects I find very fascinating called Earth core orbitals, and these are asteroids which have orbits very similar to the Earth, and they do all sorts of funny things. They make horseshoes, they make tadpoles, they make quasi satellites. We call them mini moons, extra moons of the Earth, but they're just so small, and we didn't have the technology to detect these things until like maybe 10 years ago. And we're starting to do that. We're starting to find more of these things. But there's a question out there, is that could these so-called quasi-satellites, mini-moons, could they be not, I'm going to use the word artificial here because, we know we put out a lot of space junk, right?
Right.
That stuff comes from human origins, right? And it's the same question we have to ask ourselves. When we look at one of these mini-moons, these quasi-satellites, what are the properties? Are the properties of something that is artificial, or the properties of something that is natural? And it's the same question. It's the same question that we can ask with interstellar objects. Yeah, it's controversial, right? It's a controversial topic, right? I know Avi Loeb is, he's gotten a lot of attention for this, and let's say notoriety as well, because there's some people in the scientific community who aren't so happy with I think it's the attention that he's gotten and the way that he's going about doing it. I'm thankful that he's giving us a lot of press. He's getting, he's working really hard on it. I don't agree with everything he says, right? But I think that you have to give credit where credit is due, and he has brought up a lot of awareness to this topic. Now, where we start to really, let's say, study the difference between objects of non-natural origin, objects of natural origin, is you have to really examine the properties and what we know about those properties and how we can tie those properties to physical processes that are natural or non-natural. And in the topic of Earth core orbitals, we are expanding our tool set, but we actually have a quite limited tool set of how to do that. One way to do it is to study the trajectory of Earth core orbitals. If you can catch it really early on, you can sometimes tie it to a rocket launch. Wow. Bingo, done. You because this happens quite a lot. We're launching probes into different areas of the solar system, and these probes are launched by rockets which could have rocket boosters that separate, and they go on trajectories that leave our Earth Moon system. And they could orbit the sun, and they could appear to be something like an asteroid. But when we look at a trajectory, we can trace it backwards in time, and we can say, oh yeah, there was a rocket going off around that part of the Earth system. Bingo, done. But for other cases, it's a lot more difficult. Sometimes, like this happened 7 years ago. We think we found a lunar module and a returning lunar module. So we think we found, I don't remember exactly which Apollo it was. It might be Apollo 10. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a lunar module that escaped. It's called Snoopy, and it got lost. They were practicing. They were going through the simulations of how to do the lunar landing. And the lunar module, that's the thing that would land on the moon, broke loose, and then it wandered out into space and floated around in orbit around the sun. Eventually, in 2018, it re-encountered the Earth Moon system and then got captured again. And we picked it up, we detected it as an asteroid. But when we studied it more, we couldn't backtrace it because space is very chaotic, and on decade-long timescales, you can't accurately trace back the trajectory to pair to the Apollo launch. It's just too much time has passed and there's too much chaos. The timescale when chaos takes over is too quick. On those timescales, that it basically obscures the past. But when we were studying the object, we noticed there was some peculiar, let's say, visible attributes to it, visual, optical attributes to it, to where we thought, okay, this thing looks like it could be metal. And we could actually measure the density of the object based on the visual appearance in our images, as well as combining that with its orbital trajectory, we could actually measure the effect that the sun's radiation pressure has on pushing its trajectory in space. And from that information, using physics that people learn in high school, we can measure the object's density. And I'll tell you this, rock has a density of about 1,000 kilograms per meter cubed.
Wow.
So a meter is about this big.
Right.
I'll say that's a meter. So that wide, that high, and that deep, if that was solid rock, that'd be 1,000 kilograms. Heavy. Yeah. But solid rocket, so we're talking about rocket boosters, lunar modules, they have a density much lower than that. We're talking about maybe 10 kilograms per meter cubed, orders of magnitude less dense. So when we were studying this thing we thought was an asteroid. Turns out it was probably Snoopy. We noticed that it had a very, very low density. And this is getting into the discussion of Oumuamua and its physical properties, because I think Avi Loeb, we got to give credit where credit is due, and other scientists as well asked this. Okay, is this a non-natural object? Right. What are the physical properties telling us? Is this a natural object or a non-natural object? And where we disagree is exactly on what the physical properties are and what they actually imply. And that's science, right? That's scientific debate. If we all thought the same, there wouldn't be progress in the world, right? Right. So, I mean, my understanding of the physical properties of Oumuamua and the physical circumstances, I think, align with the being. It can have a natural explanation. We don't know all the whys, like the deep explanation, like the deep theoretical explanation. But empirically, as a phenomenon, I think it aligns with being something of natural origin. It's a very fascinating natural object. And I think that's okay. We don't have to explain anything, because space is weird. The universe is a weird place. We don't know everything about the universe. We don't even know 1% about the universe. Right. And our lack of knowledge could extend to the way that asteroids and comets, star systems, form planets, planetesimals, and it could be very different from how those processes occur in our star system. And I think we just have to open our eyes and look out, and we see that. We see the diversity that there is in space, all the variations, all the different forms that these extrasolar planets take. They're very unlike our star system. And so I think it would be naive to expect that these interstellar objects are going to have physical properties similar to what we see in our star system.
No, I think that's a good point, because every time that we do discover some type of metal or element, even an asteroid that hits our planet or whatever, it's exciting, and it can change our perspective of the universe. And I'm going to call them the BOA 3, because that's the three names put together. But nice. How does it change our relationship every time with the universe, every time something like this appears? Because, like you said, it's been 3. I mean, that's to just say that we've said 3. That's pretty rare. I don't think people really realize how rare that is. How does it change our relationship every time a distant cousin shows up in our universe? How does that change our perspective and our relationship with the universe?
Well, I think we have to be thankful. I think we've got to be grateful and have a greater appreciation for the universe and for nature. I don't want to get into a sermon here. I don't want to sermonize you guys, but in my opinion, and how it changes my relationships, my view on the universe is that I think it gives me a greater appreciation that we have the opportunity to study these pieces of other star systems. Yeah. And I think I don't want to scare you guys off or whatever, right? But the ancient Egyptians, they had a reverence and love for the
They did.
universe. And that was kind of the basis of their views, their worldview. And I think in our modern day society, I think it's becoming harder to do that. And there's lots of variety of reasons why that is. But this is getting on the more softer side of things, right? But I think when we see these interstellar objects, this comes from my perspective as an astronomer, I think it gives us an opportunity to realize that the universe, the galaxy, is quite a bit varied in the forms that things like our star system can take, and we're having the opportunity to study that, to realize that, and it's such a blessing.
I totally agree. I think the current climate that we're in when it comes to social media, because our heads are down most of the time now because of our phones, that we don't look up enough. And it is great that these three objects, interstellar objects, are, like you said, are a blessing, because now we're many, not a lot, not the whole world, but many that are starting to pay attention to up again. So I think it should be considered a blessing and exciting. Before we get out of here, I want to hear a little bit more about your background, because I know when I bring on somebody who talks about ghosts, or bring on somebody that talks about UFOs, I always say somebody that's gotten to this industry or this genre has had an experience. So what was your experience with the universe, with the sky, that really made you want to focus and become an astrophysicist? That's pretty fascinating.
Well, the one sentence summary is that or very, very short one sentence summary, is that I kind of fell into it by accident.
Hey,
I had that's really it, because but I had lucky experiences before that. I originally started out in my education wanting to study the small scales of physics, like subatomic particles. Because at the time, the big exciting event in physics was the finished construction of the Large Hadron Collider near Geneva in Switzerland. That was going to provide the most powerful, let's say, highest, most energetic particle collisions, to study the effects that these collisions would have in tearing apart particles at the subatomic level and seeing what kind of subatomic particles there are and what energies that they exist at. But when I was finishing up school, there was the financial crisis occurred, and it was very, very difficult to be able to study anything and have opportunities to study. So where I wound it up was at a physics program that didn't do the high energy stuff, but they had a option, kind of like a major or a minor, in the equivalent of it, and when you go in graduate school, to study what they call planetary science. And this was kind of my first real exposure to astronomy. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. I'll give that a try. Who doesn't like planets? Who doesn't like all those beautiful images that NASA and other associations take of the night sky, and of Mars and Jupiter and so on? These are gorgeous, gorgeous things. So I'd like to learn more about what goes on in them. And I completed the coursework, and I didn't have the opportunity to, let's say, stay at this university and study there. But by doing that, it led me to my first real astronomical job, which was at the University of Hawaii, working with telescopes on Maui and the Big Island to survey the night sky, looking for asteroids and comets. And so that was kind of my first real kind of experience. And the reason why I was able to connect with that was because the person who hired me had studied high energy physics, what I wanted to study originally starting out. And I had studied high energy physics a little bit to know kind of the techniques that were used to quantify your observations of these subatomic particles. And this researcher who hired me, he was applying those same techniques, but not to subatomic particles, but to asteroids floating around in space.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind. And I was like, wow, I have to work for this guy because I can apply the same techniques that I thought were so interesting and fascinating about subatomic particles to studying asteroids. They're just another type of particle. They're very big and massive.
Right. Yeah.
Quite a bit bigger than quarks and leptons and other things. But, they're particles.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and really diving deep and explaining this and putting it in terms so where we can understand it. And I hope people really enjoyed it. And I know people can go to your website, bolinastro.com. That's right below. And if you're listening, it's bolinastro.com. And you can check out his website. I'm sure you have an Instagram, or maybe not. I don't know. I haven't checked it. Did you have an Instagram?
Yeah, I have an Instagram. I have one that's kind of a science / kind of travel.
Nice.
I don't take it very seriously. But if people want to reach out to me, that's fine. If they want to shoot me questions, I'm happy to answer them. I get asked all sorts of questions all the time.
I'm sure.
And I'm happy to discuss, talk with people about it.
Awesome. Well,
I really appreciate people's interest in this thing. Y'all are doing a huge help and to carrying the message forward, getting the message out there. So thank you so much for having me on here and giving me the opportunity to talk about things that I'm passionate about. I
can tell, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your passion. And I didn't put it on screen, but it is Dr. Bryce Bolin. And he said just to call him Bryce. So I appreciate you doing that. But thank you for being here, and thank you for doing what you do.
Sure thing, Tony. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any follow-up questions or need me to do anything else to help you out.
Don't worry, you will be a guest again. I promised. I promise you that.
Fabulous.
I know. Yeah, don't threaten me with a good time. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you. This is another great episode of a great guest that we've had. And if you have other questions, I'm sure there's questions I didn't ask. You can always reach out to Dr. Bryce, and I'm sure he'll reach right back out and answer those for you. But again, every Friday, right here on the Club Paranormal Network on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, leave a review. We appreciate you. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all the platforms. But until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.